Good morning. I welcome you all on behalf of CEC to the EduSat transmission today. We have the pleasure of having a renowned media scholar to our EduSat transmission studio here. I welcome you, Professor C.B. Singh here. Professor Singh is an educator, an author, researcher. He has to his credit many scholarly articles. Moreover, he has a 21 years of long and rich experience in the industry in the areas of academics and administrative nature. He has been associated with big names like Bennett and Coleman, Discovery, IIMC, University of Hyderabad, UNESCO, IGNOU, and whatnot. He has to his credit more than 100 case studies, research papers, reports, articles for print as well as various other forms of media. Today, he is going to deliver a lecture on the topic of media economics. Now I hand it over to Professor Singh for the lecture, please. Professor Singh.
Thank you. Welcome to our interaction on media economics. Today we will be talking about what media economics is all about and what is relevant, and why do we need to talk about media economics as a discipline which is distinct or separate from economics, which is established discipline. Till now, media economics, or the study of media to be precise, has been dominated by non-economics disciplines, for example sociology, political science, psychology, and at best the culture studies. Not that the study of media from the perspective of these disciplines is not important. They are important. The impact of the media content, be it television, radio, internet, mobile, newspapers, magazines, or even advertising on the audience in particular and the people in general, cannot be undermined. And maybe that's why till now most of these studies of media had been from the perspective of these non-economics disciplines. However, it doesn't need to be emphasized that any decision in any media organization is largely guided by the finances. How much money are you going to spend, and what are the likely returns, and how long will it take to get those returns. In addition to that, media as a sector has got certain distinct features, and these features are different from the other sectors, for example manufacturing or even the service sectors like telecommunications. It is in this context possibly that we are talking today about the relevance of media economics, and we will be talking about certain brief facts as well as the tools. After this opening discussion, you should be able to identify the kind of questions that media economics as a discipline seeks to address. You should be able to explain what a firm is, what a media firm is, and what are its motivations. What drives a media unit, which is as much as an economic unit, maybe as a manufacturing unit that is engaged in the production of cars or automobiles. You should be able also to understand and describe the different types of competitive market structures that exist, the degree of competition, and how that presence or absence of competition is deciding the kind of product that particular unit is churning out. You should also be able to understand what is special about the economics of the media, as we pointed out right in the beginning, that as a sector, media is different from other sectors. You should also be able to identify and explain some of the key economic characteristics or the features, attributes of different media industries. But before we move on to what media economics is all about and what are its attributes, we should understand certain basic concepts. Since we are talking about media economics, the abiding factor, the underlying factor here of course is economics itself. What do we study in economics as a discipline and what it pertains to? Economics is the study of how best an individual and a firm is able to allocate the scarce resources to optimize or to maximize its ends. In the case of individuals, for example, the wants are unlimited and the resources to meet those needs, meet those wants, satisfy those wants are very, very limited. So, the resources are scarce, they are limited, and the wants are unlimited. In this scenario of scarcity of resources and limitless demands, one has to strike a balance. That is what the subject matter of economics is. That of course is at a given point of time when the technology remains constant and the uses of inputs or resources are known over a period of time. However, the technology changes and the change in technology is capable of increasing efficiency and that may result in larger output, better results with the same amount of input. Now to media economics, it remains almost the same. How best the decision makers of a media firm or media organization are able to allocate their resources to get what they want in terms of media products. It could be a television program, it could be news stories in a newspaper, it could be articles in a magazine, and it could be the content, the multimedia content on a website and also maybe on mobile. But to understand these things better, we need to understand certain other concepts which are common to economics, media economics, or maybe any other kinds of economics that may come up in course of discussion. Microeconomics. The microeconomics is that branch of economics which studies a particular firm, one unit or maybe a group of firms. For example, you study Maruti Suzuki or any firm that is in the business of manufacturing cars. There you will be limiting yourself to the application of the principles of economics to one unit or a group of such firms. Whereas in macroeconomics, you study things which are aggregate in nature, things which are larger, bigger in their implications. For example, prices, employment, the national income. These are the economic variables which pertain to the whole of the economy. They do not pertain to one particular segment. However, this does not mean that the microeconomic aspects or variables would not have impact on the microeconomic ones. They do have. For example, during the last few months we have seen that the value of Indian rupee has drastically gone down vis-a-vis the American dollar. This has caused appreciation in the prices of those products, inputs of which are imported or the products per se are imported. That way the macroeconomic phenomena do have immediate impact on the variables that are microeconomic in nature. For example, the price of a car or price of computers or price of mobile or price of smartphones or price of newsprint which are imported and the newsprint that is not imported, because here they would be acting as substitutes in the case of newspaper input. Invisible hands of markets, the demand, supply and price are known as the invisible hands of market. When we are discussing economics and media economics and microeconomics, we are essentially talking about a liberal market economy, where the market has a major say in what the economy or what is going to be produced in the economy, what different types of the product are going to be produced, how it is going to be priced, how it is going to be distributed to the different target consumers. That is in a liberal market economy. However, this is not the case in a socialist economy. There the decisions are taken by planners and they have to decide and make decisions about lakhs and lakhs of products and services, and yet the manner in which they decide usually leads to chaos. It reminds us as a student of economics a situation that arose between the meeting that arose out of the meeting between the erstwhile president of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic USSR and the then Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Gorbachev, Mikhail Gorbachev, asked Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher, how do you decide about the prices? How are you going to distribute these goods and services to the people? And Madam Thatcher replied, we just don't do, we keep aloof. That is the beauty of the invisible hands of the markets, and possibly that is why it is known as invisible hands. If you increase the prices, the supply will increase, the amount that is supplied by the producers will increase, because that will lead to the maximization of profits, whereas the amount demanded by the consumers will go down, because a consumer would have to part with much more money to get the same level of satisfaction. So there would be a point where at a particular point of price, particular point of money, amount of money, the amount demanded of the goods and services would be the same as the amount supplied, and it is here that they call in economics they achieve a sort of equilibrium, and the products and services are bought and supplied and sold at that point of time at that particular price. There is another concept, that is concentration ratio. Concentration ratio is about the share of a particular firm in the market where it is operating. For example, if there are total 20 channels operating in India, news channels, then there could be a very valid question, what is the share the top 4 companies are occupying in the news market, and what is the share that the bottom 4 companies are occupying? That kind of ratio would help us understand the concentration, the power that one particular firm, one unit is able to exercise on the products or services that they are supplying. Economics of scope. This is a very recent concept which deals with the capacity of a firm to produce multi-product goods. Based on the experience that you gain over a period of time, you are able to, with the same kind of inputs, you are able to produce multi-products or come up with multi-products. Marginal reproduction and distribution. How, at what cost are you able to produce the additional units of a good or service, and at what cost the additional units of goods and services are being distributed or being reached to the target audience in case of media, target consumers or target users. Another very important concept in economics, which is applied though in a very different manner in domain of media, is diminishing marginal utility. It is said, and you can feel it in your real life, when you are hungry and you have one loaf of bread, you feel more hungry. You have the second loaf of bread, you still feel much more hungry. But there comes a point where every additional unit consumption of loaf of bread or bread adds definitely to the total satisfaction level. It increases your satisfaction level, but at the same time the additional satisfaction that you get from that sorry, additional unit of consumption goes down, and that law is known as the law of diminishing marginal utility. And then there are other concepts. Marginal returns. What are you getting out of investing or employing, dedicating the additional units of inputs and returns in terms of the output, that is marginal returns and marginal product. We continue our discussion on the basic concepts. Now we will talk about what a firm is, what is profit maximization, and what do we mean by the assumption of similar response of different economic units or firms. A firm is basically an establishment or a mechanism to take the services or employ or use the inputs to get the output and then put the same in the market for sale. So that is a sort of establishment. Profit maximization. In the market economy, the units, the economic units or firms are supposed to be motivated by profit maximization. They want to gain the maximum returns on a given amount of cost or the input that they are incurring. Usually when we talk of maximization, we are also talking about minimization. We say that we want to get the maximum return or maximum satisfaction with the minimum amount of money that we spend, which is technically or mathematically an impossibility. We have to keep one variable constant to either get the minimum on the other variable or the maximum on the other variable. In this case, you have to keep your cost constant, same, unchanged to get the maximum returns on that. It is also assumed in the market economy, which we also know as the system of capitalism, that all firms under similar circumstances will be behaving in a similar manner. How far it is true, whether it really happens in real life or not, when we come to discuss about media economics, when we come to discuss about the behavior and nature of the media firms, we will be dissecting about it, we will be trying to have more details about it. The next concept that we need to understand before we move on is the market structure. By market structure we mean the number of sellers at any given point of time that are available, whether it is large or whether it is not so large or small, whether there are barriers to the entry of the newcomers in the market, whether there are products which are homogeneous or the same kind of products or similar products, or the products that are hugely different and differentiated. In terms of that, we have got a few types of market structure. One is known as perfect competition. When we say perfect competition, we mean that in the market there are large number of producers or sellers of a particular good or service. When we say a large number of producers or sellers, we mean that no seller or producer has the capacity to influence the price. So, as a consequent upon this assumption, we have to say that in perfect competition, where the number of buyers as well as sellers are large, the economic unit or firm is a price taker almost, because they cannot influence the price. Even the buyers cannot influence the price for the simple reason that they are huge in number. No single buyer would have the capacity to influence the price in a significant manner. So, the number of buyers large, number of sellers large, and the third assumption is that the products or the service that are on offer in the market are homogeneous. They cannot be differentiated. Again, whether it is true or not, whether it is applicable in case of the media products and services, we will discuss it later when we talk about the distinctive features, the attributes of media economics. Monopoly. Monopoly is the reverse of perfect competition. In monopoly, there is one seller and many buyers. One seller would always have the dictating power to decide the price, how much of a particular good or service would be available, when will it be available, and at which price. All these things would largely be decided by the monopoly firm or the firm that is enjoying that monopolistic situation. It also is not found so commonly, but one of the examples of this could be railways in India. Railways, one cannot say that has no competition. You have got road transport, you have got air transport, but railways are not run by the private sector in India mostly. Monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition would be good number of sellers would be there. They would not be large in number, but the number would be good enough. And the products that they are offering would not be the same. That would be similar in nature, but they can still be differentiated. And since the products can be differentiated, the capacity of a firm which is operating in a monopolistic competition scenario would not be pronounced. would not be very much. The other type of market structure is oligopoly, and this is a very common kind of market structure that media firms are operating in. Oligopoly comes into operation when the number of firms are a few, though they would be producing the products or service which have got certain similarities, but at the same time a very few firms would be occupying the major share in the market, and they would be in a position to influence the price, but not to the same degree a monopoly firm is. So, except for monopoly, you will have in profit competition, monopolistic competition or oligopoly certain level of or certain degree of competition. Now, we move to how far the principles of economics that we have discussed, be it the demand and supply, the price, the microeconomics, the macroeconomics, marginal utility, diminishing returns, economies of scale, apply to the operations of media. Media has got certain unique features in the sense that it is a dual market. When we say dual market, we mean when a television, when you watch television or when a television channel is producing a program, it is doing two things. It is producing the program, producing the content. For example, what I am talking to you today is being recorded and it is also telecast live. So, a content, the audio visual content is being generated and that you are watching, that is one thing. The second, by way of broadcasting the content or the audio visual information to a large number of people at the same time, television channel, in this case a JUSAT, or maybe when you put this on other media vehicles, maybe YouTube, is also creating audience, and this number of audience can be packaged, presented to the advertisers, and the advertisers would be prepared to part with the mutually agreed sum of money, which will also reflect that it is a sort of win-win situation for both of them, that is the television channel in this case as well as the advertiser. Now, the question is, who is advertiser? Why do they advertise? Advertisers are the producers of goods and services. When they advertise on a television channel, they know who all are, or largely they know that, who all are watching that particular program or that particular channel, and even they would have certain idea about at which particular point of time, on which day, what is the likelihood of this program to be watched, and that can be measured. That we call in television rating point or TRP. Now, how far this is reliable is a matter of debate, but it can be measured, there is no doubt about it. A television channel, when it approaches an advertiser, it tells him or her that, look, my program, my channel at this point of time is watched by, say, the adults who are coming from their office between 7 to 9 or 10 p.m. and this is prime time, which means this will attract the maximum number of viewers or television watchers, or as they call eyeballs. And hence, if you, and also that their purchasing power, their social status, their disposable income is almost this much. So, if you advertise your products on this program at this point of time, your products are likely to get buyers. So, a television channel will get its money from two sources. One, when you subscribe a television channel, the services of television channel through cable or through dish, and the other through advertisers. That is why we call it that media industry is a sector or industry which operates in the dual market segment. Interestingly, the audience which watches media programs or read newspapers or listen to radio, they are at the one hand users of that content, information, audio visual information in the case of television, and they are also a product. It apparently is dichotomous. Many students of economics would be surprised or may not agree to this, that you as an audience or television viewer or watcher are not only audience, but you are also a product. And how are you a product? The moment the television channel gathers information about you and tells the manufacturers of goods and services who are the potential advertisers on that particular channel, that these many people at this point of time, and they have got this kind of attributes, economic attributes and social attributes and psychological attributes, you are being sold to advertisers, and when you are sold to advertisers, you are actually being sold as a product. Of course, interesting, dichotomous apparently, but this is a fact of life, market life. Next, media products are cultural products. What do we mean by cultural product? When you consume a glass of water, when you drink a glass of water, you drink it and it cannot be used again by you, it is consumed. In that case, this is used up, that glass of water is used up, it is destroyed in a sense. But when you watch a television program, you read a newspaper, you can read the newspaper again and again and again. Not only you can read that newspaper again and again, you can also talk about a particular news story, an article or a feature or a photograph or the story of a film again and again. So, that creates a cultural environment. It has got a meaning, it has got a message that does not get used up, that does not get destroyed. Rather, many a time that message, that media product, which we call a cultural product, multiplies itself like a virus. At times it could be for good reasons with good impact, at times it could be for bad reasons with bad impact, but that's for the humans to decide. Not, the fault is not with the product or the service per se. The other uniqueness is that this is intangible. You can touch water, you can touch glass, you can drive a car, you can touch, use table, laptop, pen, but the media products in many ways are intangible, because they impact your mind, they impact your values, and they retain with you incidentally or uniquely rather to media industry or media sector. Every user of media product or service interprets, gets the meaning in a different manner. The more diverse the audience, the more diverse the meaning, and larger or longer the duration of the life or the life cycle of that media product or service. Another uniqueness of media industry or media sector is, how do you define a unit of media product or service? For example, in a newspaper, one story, stories on the front page, stories on the sports page, the articles on the editorial page, whole of the newspaper. Similarly, one particular program on a television channel, many programs, or a few programs during a particular time slot, or the channel at a particular day, on a particular day, or over a period of say a week or fortnight or month. In that sense, unit of media products are less likely to be defined in a manner, a unit in terms of a car, a pen, or a table, or a chair, or a television set, or a mobile set can be defined. When we are talking about the basic concepts of economics, we said that profit maximization is the motive of every economic unit in the market economy or the capitalist economy, and this is the motive which drives them to allocate and reallocate their inputs or resources in such a manner that the returns that they get on the cost is maximized. This is true in most of the cases. But can you really be sure about the motive of all the newspapers or all the news channels? It could be run by a trust, and the motive could be philanthropy. For example, Tribune newspaper that is published from Chandigarh and now from Delhi and maybe other centers as well, is run by a trust, and the motive of the organization is not to maximize profit. Other goals could be public influence. You may have your economic activities in the domain, in the areas of maybe steel, cement, and you want to have a news channel or television channel or a newspaper to have public opinion in your favor in times of crisis. So, the goal here is not maximization of profit, at least by devoting certain resources to the production of media products and services. The other alternative goals could be social cost benefit. For example, Prasar Bharati, that is Indian Broadcasting Corporation, which manages all the channels of Doordarshan and All India Radio. They are not into the business of maximizing their profits, not that they are absolutely non-commercial organizations. They do take advertisements and they do get money from those advertisements, and they also operate in the dual market as the commercial organizations or the commercial channels or the newspapers or radio channels do. But the motive of Doordarshan is not to maximize profits. The policymakers would like to produce diversity of programs to be aired on Doordarshan in order so that they reflect the diversity of the country in terms of its religion, culture, faith, opinions, responses, regional differences, all kinds of things would like to be represented given a chance. Here also the motive is not profit. The question could be that who decides that the preferences in terms of the programs as decided by the policymakers, maybe the CEO or the program director in a Doordarshan channel, or who certify that they are in tune with the public preferences. There could be mechanisms to decide on that. But in a parliamentary democracy, it is presumed that the legislatures, the parliamentarians would be representing the tastes and preferences and the needs or the social good of the public. We have seen here that in case of Prasar Bharati's, Doordarshan and All India Radio, the profit maximization is not the riding factor or the overriding factor. Now, let us talk about the role of price in the media market. We have discussed about it when we were discussing about the dual market situation in which the media market operates. When you go to the market, you buy a product or service. So, there is a direct relationship between the price that you pay for the service that you get or the product that you buy or use it. However, say for example, in the newspaper, in case of India, in a 50-page newspaper or 40-page newspaper, that may be the Times of India or the Hindustan Times or any other newspaper, you pay hardly 5 rupees. The cost could be 50 rupees, the cost could be 40 rupees. You are hardly paying 10% of the total cost that is incurred on producing a newspaper. 90% of the cost incurred in producing that newspaper is recovered through advertisement. In that sense, advertisement is used, you will it or not, believe it or not, to subsidize that product, subsidize that media product. It has got its own pros and cons. Pros and cons is that if advertisers are taking care of 80 to 90% of the cost of a media product, they are likely to influence the content of the media product. And those who are using or the audience may not be reflected by way of their preferences to the extent they would have been had they paid the maximum price or most of the cost that has been incurred. It is not. The difficulty here arises, how are we going to have a relationship between the preferences of the audience, the users, to some extent consumers, as you say, in the other product and service markets, the other sectors, and the price that they are paying. So, price that you are paying as an audience or as audience of a television channel or a bouquet of channels is not necessarily reflecting the preference, and that preference could have been in an ideal situation achieved had you paid the total cost that was incurred in producing that program or the newspaper plus some profit margin. That is not happening here. That is a unique situation in which the media markets operate. More of one product, we move on to another unique feature of the media industry, that is more of one product without less of others by just reallocation. In economics, there is a very simple principle which is applicable in real life, that without decreasing, if we have got the total number of the product, sorry, the inputs or resources or the amount remains the same. If you increase the production of one product, you will have to decrease the production of other products, so that when you increase the production or manufacturing of one product, you have to allocate more resources, more inputs to the manufacturing of that product. For example, during the war time, more resources are geared to war efforts. Trains would be carrying soldiers, they would be carrying ration, food, arms, armaments, ammunition, other services to the war front. They would not be able to carry in equal measure the other goods and services. Not only that, the resources that were being used to produce the healthcare products and the amount of money that was slotted in the last budget for education now maybe would be reduced, because those resources would now go to the production of maybe arms, the purchase of arms, so that you are able to defend your country. The sovereignty of your country is at stake. So, more of one product will lead to the less of one product, and that you do by reallocation of the resources that go into the production of those items. This principle may not necessarily apply to the media products. You can, without incurring much of cost, make 5 programs based on the same amount of shooting or footage that you have, and that may lead to increased viewership, increased TRP, increased money by way of advertisement. You have just reallocated the resources without producing less of other programs. It is possible, you do it. This is possible because it happens as a result of some kind of idea that goes into it. That is a very important unique feature of media sector. Another very interesting aspect is marginal cost. When you have more and more of a product, as a manufacturer, as a producer, you have to incur generally less cost on the production of that additional unit, and that leads to increasing marginal returns. In case of media, it does apply, but it applies in such a manner that the cost becomes almost negligible. You have already invested some money and resources and talent, time in producing a television program. Once you do it, there is very little cost in duplicating it, producing it again. It is not even 0.01% of the total cost, very, very negligible. In that case, the returns that you get on the reruns of a television program, the returns that you get on airing it again and again over a month or the year or the weekend is negligible, and the returns that you are getting are immense. So, media industry in that sense is an industry that is an industry of increasing marginal returns in a significant manner, and the decreasing marginal cost to an equally significant manner. In fact, it is the decreasing marginal cost of having another copy of the program that leads to the increasing marginal returns. That also brings us to discussing returns to scale. In economics, this concept of economies of scale is very important. As you gain experience, as you employ the equipment on larger scale, which we would like to call here fixed cost, then if you want to have additional output, it actually reduces the average cost of production, and because of the reducing or decreasing average cost of production, you have got economies of scale in operation. When you print 20 copies of a magazine, the cost would be maybe 40,000 if it is on offset. If you print 500, it could be 55,000. If you print say 1,000, it could be hardly 60,000. That is the economies of scale in operation. That does happen in the case of media industry, but again that happens in a much more significant manner than it can happen to other industries, because as we discussed, the marginal cost would be minimal. It is just duplication, it is just replication, and the cost would be near zero, if not zero. And the average cost of production, when we are talking about the economies of scale, is achieved by the total number, the total cost divided by the total number of items or goods that you are producing. Finally, we come to a concept which is again very if not unique, definitely significantly applied in the case of media industry, that is economics of scope. Economics of scope means that you are producing similar products or different products on different platforms with the same kind of input. For example, you go and shoot a news event, a press conference. Now this press conference the content of this press conference, if it is audio-visual, can be put on a website. It can also be these small clips, maybe broadcast on the smartphone, and the audio of it can be customized for the radio broadcast. It can also be sent through SMS, and the same kind of content can be repurposed, redesigned for the newspaper. In that sense, the scope of using the same content, the same information is tremendous in the case of media industry or media sector, and that is what the economics of scope is all about. One important factor about this is that the nature of media goods and services is public. We call it public good. Not entirely public good, but definitely to a significant scale or degree, they are being used in the nature of a public good. The school or college or the road or the hospital may be considered as public good. The media goods and services are being used again and again, and the loss of quality is minimal, almost negligible, and the cost goes down to almost a zero level. The convergence of technologies has ensured it to a significant level, particularly on the website. The cost of putting up the content, the audio, visual, graphics, pictures, still, video, everything, once you put it up, the additional cost is near zero. In that sense, it becomes a public good because it is not being used up, it is not being dried up, it is not being destroyed. It has the capacity to be used again and again and ensure continuous flow of returns or income. But there is reverse logic. Suppose the audience number goes down, if the number of the readers goes down, the cost gets stuck up and you suffer huge losses. So it has got its own pros and cons. So with that, we come to the end of this interaction on an introduction to media economics, in which we have talked about the basics of it, why we need to study media economics as a separate discipline, how far the basic concepts of economics are applicable to media economics, and how far we need to customize them to better understand, analyze, and predict what happens in the media industry. And I thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Professor C.P. Singh, and I think it was an enlightening interaction.
Thank you.
And people might have got a new insight into media economics and the nitty-gritties of it. I thank you very much, Professor Singh, for giving your time here and for giving such an insightful interactive lecture to the students or the viewers sitting all through. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.